Welcome to Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. My name is Al Morentin.
And I'm Meghan Hall.
And we are the hosts of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. How are you doing today, Meghan?
To be honest, Al, not great.
Right on. So what Meghan's talking about is this article right here that just came out this last week in the LA Times, the dirty secret of California's legal weed.
It was heavy hitting. And I have to say too, Al, like right before this video, Al goes in depth about this for about 2 hours, which I highly suggest. We'll put the link below. But Al, this is just the beginning. Can you kind of lead us into what this is about and why it's concerning?
Right on. So I made a little like Cliff Notes kind of a thing that we could just pull up here. And yeah, basically a bombshell article of what people have been talking about, you know, in the background, especially me, like for over a decade, saying these kind of things, but people really don't believe it, right? They want to believe that the dispensary has, you know, pure stuff that's pesticide free, etc. And nothing could be further from the truth, you know. So, and this article, it's so in depth, and the level of like illicit behavior and corruption that is revealed is like unfathomable. It just like just when you think you've gone like down, it just goes like 10 steps further.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right. I mean, the amount of illegal chemicals and the multiple pesticides, like, and you're such an advocate for exposing that stuff. So, like, yeah, let's dive into what was discovered.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, they tested, I think it was 42 different products, and 25 came back tainted, and many of them came back tainted with multiple pesticides. A couple of the products, Backpack Boys products in particular, had 26 different chemicals like pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides in them. Right, 26 different ones with like levels that were off the charts, not just like detectable limits, but one of them had 2,000 times the detectable amount. Right, so we're not talking like where prolonged exposure is harmful. We're talking like one exposure is harmful. There's levels of that high of just one insecticide in the product. It's crazy.
What's slipping through the cracks here? Like, okay, so backtrack to when I first started interviewing you for the Master Grower series, 2015, the Wild West of cannabis. The mom and pop places were regulated. They had to do tests, like so strict to even barely get through. And now stuff's falling through the cracks, and these corporate bought out companies are like, oh, 26 plus pesticides in it. Okay, whatever. Where did we go wrong? Where are the regulatory failures at? Like, get us going with where we went wrong.
Yeah. So, when it first came in, you know, there was a bunch of mom and pop. There was the supposed social equity and all these different things, and there was a lot of good actors, right? You know, they were doing oil, all these specialized things, you know, some specialized flour and only flour, 100%, all these different kinds of things. And slowly those have been all bought out or driven out, you know, and through a variety of ways, you know, that we should do an episode on that, just how all the mom and pops were driven out, and then that gives the opportunity for the bigger players to become bad actors, you know, and be able to cut corners, and that's what's happened, right? So one of the things that I think is important to understand in not just California, you know, weed market, but the whole United States and basically the whole world, you know, as far as cannabis is concerned, is that people are under the impression that cannabis that is in the dispensaries is pesticide free, that there's no pesticides allowed, like in California cannabis.
Right.
And that's what I thought. That's what you thought, right? Yeah. So, and that's what pretty much everybody thinks, but that's not the case. And there's a pesticide regulatory agency, you know, and there's the cannabis control agency, and then there's other cannabis agencies and stuff like that. But the pesticide agency came to the cannabis control agency, you know, or department, whatever you want to call it, and said, hey, there's 46 pesticides that we think you should test for and not allow, and blah blah blah. And the Cannabis Control Agency came back and said that's we can't do that. That would be too costly to test for all of those and do all of this. And it's ridiculous, right? Because that's all poisonous, and it's all, it's hazardous to your health, all this kind of stuff. But the that other agency came back, the pesticide agency came back and said, hey, here's a revised version. So there's 21 pesticides that aren't allowed, and then out of those 46 and the other 25, there's allowable limits. So there are allowable limits of pesticides in California cannabis and cannabis all across the United States, right? So that's one of the things that is very disheartening in and of itself. It's craziness, basically.
I don't understand how that's allowed, and it sounds like the California Department of Cannabis Control is not monitoring or addressing these contamination levels, right? Like they're just letting it slide.
Yeah, for sure. And like they set the standards like back in 2017, somewhere around there, because it was allowed for recreational use in 2016. That voted in, and then in 2017 became something, and they set the standards back then, 2017, 2018,
Right.
and then never did anything else beyond that. Right? They never updated the standards. There's been more chemicals that have been introduced into the market, a bunch of Chinese knockoff chemicals, and they have not updated any of it. So those chemicals are not tested for, and you can use those and not get in trouble technically, right? And there's some that are not allowed by tobacco federally, but they're allowed by the states for cannabis. Because it hasn't been updated, since 2018.
And that's interesting because, we're dealing with all these farmers, these organic farmers being shut down from their soil from finding a wee bit of whatever. But this cannabis is proving to have 20 plus pesticides and chemicals, and they're still, for whatever reason, allowed to still sell this. This is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's to the point where they found pesticides in a product, right? About 99% of the companies out there are marketing agencies, right? And they don't actually manufacture their own product. And so it's hard for them to regulate them even themselves, right? But they found pesticides in this one company, and they traced it back to like a white label manufacturer that made it, right? And they find the company that they found the pesticides in, and they find I think the distributor or something like that, but they didn't find the people that actually grew the herbs. And that company has their own line, and they tested the same strain of oil, and it had pesticides as well. But that company, they're the ones that actually created it and put the pesticides in it, and they're not being fined at all. The one the other one that bought it off of them and sold it through another brand is being fined. It like none of it makes sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to dive into the pesticides and what's in them in a second, but the industry malpractices, like brands are cutting corners due to high taxation rates and operating costs. Okay. And then you're saying brokers source the bad weed with chemicals to save money. So we're following the money here. They're trying to save money. Consumers are buying pesticides in their weed and then inhaling it, and they're like, that's cool because we're saving money. Like, can you expand on that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things going on here. So the commercial grows have gotten so big that it's almost impossible to have a grow because there's resins and all this stuff that attracts insects and different pests, right? So they have 50,000, 100,000 square foot flowering rooms, and the same thing for a veg room, like a 30,000 square foot cutting, for cuttings and stuff like that. So it's almost impossible to not use pesticides and not lose your crop. that way. So like it's hard enough, like in a 4x4 tent, to not use pesticides, and do it organically. Doing it in these massive grows, like it technically is impossible. Like I've never seen it done. And there's actually, like, I was watching this video the other day, this thing called Cannabis, and they interview these different companies, these big brands, and go into their grows and all that kind of stuff. And they asked the one guy, that was heading in the bedroom, and which was like almost 100,000 square feet. And they were saying, "Are you organic?" And he goes, "Hell no! Like there's no way we could be organic. We douse our stuff, with chemicals, to keep our our crops viable. We can't lose our crops." And like you literally said it on video, that they're dousing them with chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and it's a common practice, because they cannot lose their crop, because like a grow that big, that's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, right? That they could lose, and they're not going to do that. And then they don't know how to dry properly. They're not, all these people that they're big investors, that hire people to do the work, and they don't know how to dry properly, and do all of these things, so that they get mold in the weed. And then and any oil these days is basically from moldy weed, because so much of the weed turns moldy, because they don't know how to dry it and cure it properly. So, and it's just a big huge mess. And then if there's mold found in the weed, or if there's even if there's pesticides, herbicides or fungicides found in there, then they're allowed to remediate it, to try to get it out of there, and so it could test bad, and then they can go through a process to try to strip it, but it's also a harmful process, and it kills off the therapeutic value of it too, and so it's basically worthless, except for getting you high. And it's just crazy. But they're allowed to remediate. It's called oil remediation, or flower remediation, where it makes something that tested bad test good. They could add terpenes back in, and it could remove like heavy metals or pesticides to a certain degree. But the other thing about that is that sometimes they're able to pull it out and test good, and then they're allowed to put it on the shelves, even though it tested bad previously. Now it tests good. But even if they're not able to do that, they'll put it on the shelves anyways, because the chances of them getting caught are basically 0%.
And it's taking this type of article and scenario to expose it, so that we can hopefully do something about it, and anyone that's watching it can be more vigilant, and then hopefully it spread like wildflower. Let's talk about these labs. So all these labs that are testing it, I remember, again, during the Wild Wild West era, when I was filming for both my shows, and really talking with you about this, along with the other mom and pop companies. Lab testing was hard, and like if you did not pass, you were shit out of luck until you created flour that passed. And there was tons of regulations, and it was really hard. But I respected, and I assumed that this would still be the case now. What we're finding out from this article is that labs are taking bribes to give and offer good lab results, and for money, basically. It's like, oh, well, you pay us. Here you go, A+, get it out there. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, yeah, when it first became illegal recreationally in California, there was a lot of labs that popped up, just like there was a lot of grows that popped up. There was a lot of labs that popped up, because that was going to be a big deal. Testing was going to be a big, huge deal. And people, they took, they got investment, and I had friends that did it. Like they got millions of dollars of investment, and they got super high end equipment that does the accurate testing, like to a T, and all this kind of stuff. And it was, like you had to have like good, pristine, awesome product, and in order to pass. And if you had anything in there, it would not pass. And there was no allowable detectable limits or anything like that at these labs either. And what happened was, as brands came in, and the bigger brands like bought out the smaller brands, or drove out the smaller brands, or whatever, then that caused the bigger brands to go. They go to a lab, and if that lab rejected them and said, like your stuff is bad, they just wouldn't go back to that lab. So pretty soon, those honest labs got no business, and then the other labs,
Wow. Okay.
they're and they owed millions of dollars, right? And either in equipment, loans, or or they got investment, and so they just went under very quickly. And then the labs that got cheaper equipment and they fudge results, they're thriving. Some of them will get bribes and all that kind of stuff, right? And just like you would think, little backroom deals and things like that. And others, they'll just give out passing tests for things that should fail, and because company will go by and test it, like, hey, well, I know my stuff is bad. Let's see what this lab does, and then a lab could get known for passing dirty stuff and get a bunch of business that way.
Right.
It's like all kinds of business. So there's both. There's ones that do it for bribes, and there's ones that do it just to get more business. Because they know that they'll pass. I actually came across that, myself one time, because I go to labs, to have our product tested,
Right.
do new batches, and they sometimes he'd be pretty on, sometimes he'd be a little bit off, on the milligrams. I always try to be, if I was going to be off, it'd be like a little bit higher, but they want you to be like as right on as possible.
Right.
And I went to this company. It was a new lab in Long Beach, and California, and I took, like, I would say, all of my products. I had like 12 or 15 SKUs at the time. I took all of them there, and they were like all almost dead on. Like if something was 25 milligrams, it was like 25.2 milligrams. And like they were all. And I was like, man, I'm getting good at this. And then later on, I realized that they didn't even test my stuff properly. They just, like, wrote out different things, of what it was, because I remembered they had asked me, like, what should this one test for, and what should this one test for, and they asked me, like the amounts that each one should test for, instead of just testing it and finding out, And
Right.
I had told them, and so they were fudging, and they're actually not in business anymore either, though.
Okay. I was going to ask. That's very interesting. And so I'm the integrity of the plant. So one of the things and you remember this, but back with Cannabis 101 and both of our interviews with them, one of my biggest concerns was the integrity of the plant, right? Which is now, fast forward to now, and the companies are losing their integrity. They're selling their soul, is what you say all the time. And the people in danger is the consumer. And we're talking medical users, and we're talking recreational users. And does it matter if you're just doing it for fun, to go to the beach and smoke a joint and, be one with the stars, or you have cancer or have a health problem and need help, your flower's got to be good. So the integrity is being lost. And you really go into this, and that's why you're so passionate about your RSO and your flower. And it's, can you explain? It's one of the reasons why you're growing the flower yourself, is because you can't trust anyone
Yeah,
right now.
for sure. And it's one of those things where it's, this stuff is inhaled, right? Like inhaled into your body, and it gets into your bloodstream instantly across the blood-brain barrier, all that kind of stuff. So it's much different than like a cleaning product or something that has chemicals in it, and it's they even see it that way. They won't even test it on people because of the harm that it could have. So they just guess at the allowable limits, if they do allow limits. So that's bad in and of itself. You don't want to test it on people just to find, to kill them or anything like that, but guessing at the allowable limits. If you're going to guess, to just say that there is no allowable limit, right? So there's that. What was the rest of the question?
The rest of the question is basically, you have now decided to maintain the pure integrity of the plant, that you're growing your own flower now, which then leads into the RSO that you're creating for your customers, correct? Like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's what basically what I've always said though, because like I go blind in less than a week if I
yep,
stop taking my stuff. So
right,
to backtrack for people that are new,
yeah,
I went blind from glaucoma and got my vision back with cannabis oils and crushed a lifetime of migraines and chronic pain. And so like I cannot have bad oil. So that's why my company exists, because I can't depend on anybody else for the reasons of this article.
right,
People say I'm like, uh, over exaggerating things all these years because I've been talking about this for over a decade.
right,
And this is like, proof in the pudding right here. And,
right,
and it's beyond, uh, you know, beyond anything anybody could ever imagine as far as bad, right?
right,
And it gets worse and worse and worse as the other video goes on that
right,
Meghan mentioned, because it's literally a 2-hour video,
right.
and each step of it gets worse and worse and worse to till the very end. I mean, it's just craziness.
Yeah,
And
and I
but
was into
the
massive
moldy
detail. Yeah,
weed, all that stuff, because I saw it firsthand. I visited many farms. I had
yeah,
500 farms under me when I was in California at one
yeah,
time, right? Like the biggest network of farms, in California. So I visited many farms.
right.
Like that's
I
all I was
remember
doing
that.
at one point. And I would see like they would bale it like hay, and it would get moldy and all that kind of stuff. Like they didn't know how to dry and cure properly, and all that stuff would be sent to be extracted as oil, because you can't, nobody's going to want to smoke moldy weed. Since then, they made these remediation machines that can actually make the weed look pretty again and and smell good again and do all this stuff, So it can
It's
make
still alive.
weed look good, and it's just craziness. But even back then, there was all these bad practices and bad actors. And I've been in cannabis since 1987, so I've seen the good, the bad, the ups and downs, and I know, that I need to have my own,
Right,
that I could depend on, because
right,
I don't want to go blind again. And there's
exactly.
no, but and same thing with other people. That's why people stick with us, for so long. Like I've had customers that have been with me since 1987.
Right,
It's crazy, but it's because our stuff always works, and
correct.
we have integrity behind our stuff, and we never falter, never fail. But that's
Let's
not the case
let's
with these companies. And it's not just the companies; it's the brands, it's the brokers, it's the manufacturers, and it's the regulators and the labs. Right? They all are
yeah,
doing things nefarious. Right?
correct.
It's crazy.
But it had to be exposed, and this article is the gates that are going to allow for more, hopefully, to come out. We needed to know this. You said before you would say this all the time, and people be like, "Yeah, whatever, okay." But this hopefully will get the ball rolling, where they realize even more so that this is very serious. And we smoke, we enjoy this miraculous plant for healing benefits. And these companies are legitimately putting chemicals and pesticides in it to prevent the healing properties. Just we have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about just the whole point of having this plant versus profit, right? Plant versus profit, which you say and your friend says all the time. I wanted to
Yep.
dive into the types of contaminants that are listed also in the article and in your bulletin points. Can you get into some of these contaminants and their health risks? Because it's a big deal.
Yeah, real quick though,
Yeah,
wanted to go over one thing
yeah,
um, about the brokers and the white
absolutely,
label manufacturers,
absolutely.
and how they relate to the brands. So I mentioned earlier that a lot of the brands are just marketing companies, and some of them don't even have a cannabis license. Okay, like Backpack Boys don't have a cannabis license. They own dispensaries, and they have a brand that sells like flour and carts and vapes, all kinds of stuff, but they don't have a cannabis license. And the way they get around that kind of stuff is they don't handle it. They if you don't handle it, you could technically not have a cannabis license, and it's like a loophole kind of a thing. So they
Okay,
have they either buy from brokers or from white label manufacturers. In their case, they go to a white label manufacturer who buys from brokers, and there could be between the farm and the white label manufacturer, there could be anywhere from at least one to up to like a dozen brokers that are involved. and there's nefarious stuff that could happen along the way. But you never know who the farm was, so that could be a bad actor farm just altogether, right? And then when it gets to the manufacturer, if you're extracting oil and making vape carts or whatever, then they might be using some harsh chemicals to extract the oil to get more oil or to make it look prettier or whatever, and harsh chemicals will do that. And and these guys, like there's one mention that I think it's from Van Nuys or whatever in the article, and he literally makes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of carts. I think his name is David Shin, and he makes them for Backpack Boys and a bunch of other different brands, and his stuff is contaminated, right? And it's not just that; it's from like oil that's from old weed, moldy weed, all that kind of stuff, right? So they extract it and then they turn it into what's called a distillate, and where they remove all the plant matter, which they want to hopefully remove the mold and the pesticides along with it, to where there's just cannabinoids, and then they'll put in some what I call perfume afterwards. So they'll add in terpenes, to like a flavoring to it to make it smell good or taste good or whatever, or both. And then they give it out to that same stuff, the gelato or whatever it is. That same one goes out to all the brands, so all the brands have that same exact one. It's not different, and
all of them are toxic and tainted.
Yeah, and all of them are toxic and tainted. So, and here's an example. Like I have a friend that has a white label manufacturing company in Colorado, and he handles over 5,000 brands. Okay. So that means that so like if he has stuff, like
5,000 are.
If he's a bad actor, because I don't know if he is or not. I got he is not. But if he is a bad actor and puts out tainted stuff, that's 5,000 brands that have tainted stuff. Without and each of them would have to test every one of the batches of products they get from him. Every one of the orders they would have to test, and that's expensive. And so like 99.9% of those don't do it,
and they're getting away with it.
And then also the ones that don't have a cannabis license, they don't touch it, so they don't even have a chance to test it. They don't have any way to test it,
and that's their get out of jail free card.
It'll go from the broker to the manufacturer and then from the manufacturer to a distributor that distributes it out for the marketing company, like Backpack Boys. So they never have to handle it. So they don't typically have to have the license, but they can't test it either, right?
So when they're exposed, they go, "Oh, it's the other guy. Oh no, it's the other guy." Like they kind of
then you figured out a loophole, but you still had bad shit, So yeah,
it doesn't matter that they have bad shit, and we're sorry. Let us do the right thing and make good shit. It's not my fault. I'm doing everything right. Like, what are you talking about? So let's.
Yeah. They passed the buck saying like somebody else did it, or the chemicals that are in our stuff, like Steezy and West Coast Cure, the presidents of their company basically said, like we're within the legal parameters of California law. They had multiple pesticides, herbicides, fungicides in their product, but they were that are illegal federally in tobacco, but they're not regulated by California cannabis. So they were like, we're following California cannabis regulations, and they're the strictest in the nation, and so our stuff is okay, even though it has chemicals in it. So fuck you. I mean, it's just crazy, It's
Can
nuts.
we talk about the chemicals and the pesticides and some of these really interesting?
Here they are right here. So and we're gonna put this link to this article in the show notes, and then also the link to the video, the 2-hour video that breaks down every single aspect of this article, right? As well. But this chlorphenapure, this one is the one that was the most prevalent. And it's the one that in the Backpack Boys was found at 2,000 times detectable limit, right? So that means that not just multiple exposures over time could harm you. That means one exposure of this chemical at that level can harm you. and it's an endocrine disruptor. You know, it messes with your hormones, and it also is known to do stuff to your brain. It's crazy. So exposure symptoms include nausea, vomiting, headache, difficulty breathing, wheezing, chest tightness, short-term memory loss. It releases hydrogen cyanide and other toxic gases in rats. It was concentrated in the breast milk and caused increased death in offspring. You know, it's crazy. You know, and it's an insecticide not permitted on any food product. No amount is allowed in California cannabis, and 2,060 times the detectable limits. Right? There's pymetrozine. It's another insecticide. This red mark right here means it's not screened for in California cannabis, but it is in tobacco federally, right?
Okay.
So you could technically have this in there, and they found it up to 762 times detectable limits, you know, or amounts, whatever. And but you could have it in there and not get in trouble technically because it's not regulated. But remember, they've never updated the standards since they instituted them back in 2018, right? But it's a known carcinogen, and it caused damage to endocrine organs in rats. It's prohibited in European Union, Canada, Norway, and approved only for restricted use in the United States on food crops. You know, it's crazy. You know, and it just goes on. Like the next one's a fungicide. You know, it's an endocrine disruptor, headache, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, irritated eyes. You know, creates hydrogen cyanide inside of you. You know, which is a poison. And rat studies show it fused bones. You know, so like offspring were being born with fused bones.
These health risks are the same thing that the pure plant heals when it's not tainted with this shit.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So there's a bunch of things at play here, you know, and you know they don't, you know, one of the things being they don't want people to get better, right? You know, and that's why this stuff is allowed. That's why remediation is written into the laws basically for cannabis. You know, remediation where they try to remove the mold and different toxicity, chemical toxicity in the flower or in the oil. It's been mainly in the oil, but they could do it the flower now as well. It's encouraged, you know, oh yeah, like tainted stuff can be, you know, remediated and you know have the stuff removed, and if it tests good then it's allowed on shelves. You know, and I mentioned to you off air, you know, before we started hit with the button, that you know I've been in the back room before where you know we received phone calls, you know, like the people, you know, the people that I was with received a phone call and saying, hey, you know, did you run it through, you know, through the remediation thing, and because there's an actual machine for it, and they're like, yeah, but it's still tested, you know, positive for pesticides, you know, whatever. And the guys will run it through again. It's like, we ran it through 8 times already, and I'll run it through 9 times, you know. And you know, so it's like they don't care. They want the money. They're not gonna discard the stuff and do another run, you know, and get better products. They do not want to lose money, and they'll sacrifice people's health because of it. It's crazy.
Like you were saying earlier, their defensive tactics are basically the brands saying we're abiding by these particular state rules from laws that are as old as 2018 versus saying, hi, we need to do the right thing. Sorry about that. We're giving you poison in this flower. Let us fix our shit so that we give you a quality product. No, it's nope, like nothing to see over here. Here's a discount. You know what I mean? But please keep ingesting our shit so we can make money off of you because we don't give a fuck about you.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, and the regulators aren't doing anything about it, right? Um, I mentioned to you before that the state regulators, they have a lab, but they are only able to test for cannabinoid potency and mold. They don't have the capability to test for pesticides, so they can't, you know, do their own independent testing to see if there's pesticides in there. So there has been 0 recalls on products up until 2023. Like there's tons of products, you know, up until then that had pesticides in them, but this guy was like a whistleblower, you know, and he he sent over a bunch of tests, and with hundreds and hundreds of products that were tainted, and they pulled one, finally
Right.
in 2023, like 7 years later, right? It's crazy. And then they pulled another one when he complained again in early 2024.
Right.
But it's ridiculous. But they don't even have the capabilities to test for the stuff. You know,
Correct.
it's nuts. It's like it's just it just shows that they don't care. And they are
So,
not willing to do anything about it. And it encourages bad behavior because people know this.
hence again why Al says pay attention to companies that have sold their soul. It- Again, there's no integrity behind them or the plant, and it's very important to know your grower and to know where you're getting your cannabis from and what you're putting in your body. Just Al's, you've been adamant about health for over 25 years, as well as cannabis. The two are linked, right?
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
it's imperative that we don't continue being ignorant about this issue. And I was looking at my notes. It's Josh Swider or Swiden
Uh-huh.
actually what did the lab test, correct? Is that correct? And he went
He's
and
the
actually told,
whistleblower guy. He
yeah,
has his own lab,
yeah,
and he was he's tested stuff and found pesticides. So what he did was he went and got his own product, from dispensaries or wherever, that had tests that said that they passed,
okay,
that they had no pesticides,
okay,
or within legal parameters for certain ones, whatever. And he tested them at his lab, and they came back positive for pesticides or above the legal limits, or allowable limits. And so he's like, these are fake certificates of analysis, like that are being put out, so everything is like a lie. And that's when he alerted, the regulatory agencies, and then they did nothing about it. And then he ended up alerting Gavin Newsom and people in his office, and then he,
mm,
for a second time, alerted every agency again. And that's in 2023, when he when they pulled one product off, even though he showed like over 100. They ended up pulling one.
only took one.
They left the rest to be sold out, right? And then one of the so here's the thing too. So he did that. That's cool and everything. What the other labs are saying that he's adding pesticides in, and tainting the tests, whatever, and just because he wants to be known, and he wants to get business, but the WeedWeek got all of his all of the ones that he had said were bad.
Mm-hmm.
WeedWeek went to the dispensaries, LA Times and WeedWeek. They went to the dispensaries and bought those same exact ones and tested
Mm-hmm.
them, and they came back with the same exact results.
Really? Okay.
So that's bullshit, right?
Yep.
It's crazy. Just like when the response from Backpack Boys was, you guys tested like bogus stuff, that was that is not our stuff, it was made by someone else that just has our name on it, you know
Huh.
and the guy from WeedWeek responded back, in the Instagram post saying, hey, really, because I went in to the Backpack Boys dispensary to buy your stuff, so you guys are selling third party stuff, you guys are selling knockoffs of your own
Right.
stuff, and
Right.
it doesn't make sense, right? So like
Right.
everybody's trying to pass the buck, and they're caught lying, and then they still say, so what,
Right. Right. But then, where do we go from here? We're For consumers, Al, where do we go? Like, we're supposed to be able to trust legal cannabis, or for the most part, the ones with pesticides. That is weed to me. I'm very particular about cannabis versus weed. Like, there's the correct version, and then there's like trash fucking weed, right? And so we're being poisoned in various ways. This is another tactic that's kind of playing out. How do we navigate as a consumer what we're ingesting, what we're putting in our body? Like, how do we move forward with this?
Yeah, well, first thing is you have to take responsibility for your health in today's world. This period. You have to take responsibility and do your due diligence. So, so yeah, so it's the same thing with the cannabis. Whether you do it for recreational purposes or you're doing it for therapeutic purposes. Trying to overcome and manage a condition, which is like what most people that I deal with are trying to do. But even people that are doing it for like relaxation and stuff, that's therapeutic. And so in that respect, taking in chemicals is harmful. So you need to do your due diligence and find a company that does things correctly. Yeah. And one of the ways to do that is to get educated. Find people or channels like this, whatever, that with people that are knowledgeable that can put out correct information, so you could learn what's really going on and then learn the right questions to ask. And learn why you're asking them instead of just because some people, they hear things on the internet and they'll like a question, but they don't know why they're asking the question. So it doesn't. So that when somebody answers, they don't know. Like what why or what. So you understand the questions that you're actually asking, and then when you do find that like unicorn, that because they are out there, but when you do find that one, then you stick with them and you purchase from them and you continue to purchase with them, and you don't get lazy, and purchase from other ones, because you're at this point voting with your dollars these days, right? The regulators, the government officials, all that kind of stuff, they don't have your best interests at heart. So voting with votes doesn't do you any good. So the only thing that people see is the bottom line. And if you vote with your dollars and prop up the ones that are doing things right, and devastate the ones that aren't, then they'll change. That's that if they have to. If they don't, if you don't force them to, then they won't. And so it's sort of up to the consumer. They could drive it.
True. It's true, but we have to take accountability and then, like you say, action.
Because they don't have your best interests at heart. They're trying. They're I won't say they're trying to kill you, but they favor money over your health.
Right.
For sure. Right. So they don't mind killing you for some profits.
Right.
That's where that like the exact acceptable death toll and all that kind of stuff comes into play. Right.
Yeah. I some of the questions, we'll get into the key takeaways from you and your advice. But I did want to, and then solutions and a couple testimonials that we were going through before we started this recording, which was amazing. How do you know, like you had mentioned how you had bought some flower from a dispensary and you could tell right away that it was bad, right? Like, know the difference. You've seen it for 30 plus years. You know that the plant well. Explain the testing process briefly, and how do you know your weed is okay? Let's say you get something and like, I don't know. Like, how would someone know?
Yeah. So real quick, this picture right here, I don't know if you can see these little white cans here, these little white things on these poles.
Yeah.
Those are insecticide foggers, like you would foggers for your house. They're spraying those off in the cannabis grows, right?
Oh my God.
like literally dousing it with foggers. I mean, it's craziness, right? So the testing process, it's fairly simple. So there's procedures that you have to have as far as with cannabis, and especially in California, they want you to have cameras on the operation at all times, and most of the companies are in violation of that. Like I said, like most of the companies, they don't even do their own stuff, right? They don't actually their own stuff, but so they're supposed to have cameras, and especially when they're getting a sample, they're supposed to have cameras on that, so they could prove that you're pulling the sample from the actual batch and not pulling a clean, pristine sample and having a effed up batch over here. Like and sort of gaming the system. So and no companies that were asked for that camera footage were able to produce it. Like zero. Right. So that's not done. So there are practices that are put in place to sort of make it hard for people to do these nefarious practices, but they're not forced by the regulators, because they're basically being paid off, right? It's craziness. So, but the way that you test things is you're supposed to pull it from a sample and have cameras on you and stuff like that, and pull it from the batch, that's going to be sold out to the market, the dispensaries or wherever, and then and it's presented to the uh, testing facility either by courier from the brand, or a courier from the lab will come down a lot of times and pick it up at the actual the manufacturer's lab, and a lot of the really good testing labs will only do that because they want to make sure that that things are as up and up as they can be, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll test flour. There's different machinery that tests for the stuff, and but like you said, test for contaminants, test for potency, test for molds, fungus, the herbicide, pesticide, fungicides. It tests for all these different things, heavy metals, things like that, right? And there's like allowable amounts, detectable amounts, all these different things. The labs, the analysis, they're hard to read. Most people do not know how to read them. So and what happens is along the way you'll get a certificate of analysis, COA or COB is what's called, right? And so when you sell something to a dispensary or whatever, they say, hey, do you have a COA for that or COA for that? Then you send over the good one, and if you did get a bad one, then you just don't send it. You just send over the good one. So the COAs are false a lot of times, and then like you said, that there are labs that will put out false ones too,
Right.
either because they're bought, they're paid off, or because they want to get business. They want to get known as the ones that do that, right?
Right.
And that's a widespread thing. So that's basically the testing process. There are ways to make it very, very reputable, but it's not enforced. Like there's zero enforcement by the regulators.
So again, organic farms are losing their entire farms, and the ones in this are getting away with all of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Just noted. Okay.
Yeah. So what Megan's talking about is like not organic cannabis farms, but organic produce farms are getting their farms like that you can't grow on there because they have these forever chemicals on there. They're called PFAS, and it was put in this what's called biosludge that was given to the organic farmers as something that was supposed to be good, but it contained these PFAS chemicals, and they're forever chemicals that like 30 years later they're supposed to stay in there forever, but for at least 30 years, so they can't farm on that land for that long. So they're taking, so they actually sold them like fertilizer that had these chemicals in there as something that was good, and then they say, hey, you have this chemical in there, we sold it to you, but it's in there now, you can't farm on this land anymore.
Right. And your farm's gone.
But in the cannabis industry, you could have 26 pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, whatever, in one product, in one big part, and it's okay.
So fucked.
They're still in business, right?
So fucked up, man. And that's how I started waking up to realizing that maybe not all authority has our best interest in mind. I'm just going to leave it there, but like, just, do your own research, like Al says.
Yeah. So this is like some Chinese chemicals that they found, so these are knockoff chemicals. So they have different names technically, so they're not regulated. So you could technically have them in the cannabis, but they're super harmful, probably more harmful than the ones that are allowed. I mean, it's crazy. It's nuts,
I'm just so intrigued by like this whole thing. And again, like I'm hoping, I mean, this is big. I'm hoping that it brings out more whistleblowers and people that have either been in it, that have come out, that are like, hey, I've seen it firsthand, but also the mom and pop places that got pushed out that are trying to come back. Like, we need you guys, like, please, like, we need true integral growers and people like Al out there. So I'm just, it's a relief to have you guys, out there, but what a battle this is.
Yeah, check this out real quick. So this is like the results right here, and this is
Yeah.
a backpack boys, like chlorphenapyr. That's the one that it's not allowed, any like on anything and any food, anything in the United States or anywhere in the world really. And they found 1,487 times the detectable
Oh,
amounts.
come on.
And then this bifenazate, clofentazine, all these different ones. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 plus 15 more. It says and 15 more. So 11 plus 15 is 26, right? And this one's this many, I think it's 10 of them and 16 more. This one, this many and 15 more. This one, this many and 15 more. So over 20 chemicals in each of them. It's crazy at the level. And there's 26 pages of this. Like Alien Labs, their OZ Kush, they passed, but like all these backpack boys, and there's pages just of backpack boys, all this. That's all backpack boys right there, and these little off-brand circles, or whatever, and cloud, all these ones. It's crazy.
How many? What bugs are you protecting people from with these pesticides? What the fuck bug are you trying to prevent? Like, I don't understand why it needs that many pesticides or chemicals. Like, why?
Yeah, and then look at this. So you see this Flavor Aid, like it has this one that didn't pass, but these did. This one didn't, and then these two didn't, but these four, or these two did. These four didn't. So you can't be like brand specific, because within a brand there could be there's ones that are and ones that aren't.
Sure.
It's just crazy, because they probably went to different manufacturers. They probably don't produce their own stuff, and went to different manufacturers for this one and that one. And it's a crapshoot, because they go by the lowest price. Like, how much you guys have this? How much is it? Can I get it for this? Okay, cool. Like they go by the lowest price, not the best quality. It's craziness.
What can we look for to ensure good flower? Like,
Oh yeah, you asked me that. So like when I started purchasing cannabis from dispensaries and noticing that it was tainted, the biggest alarm was when I would light it up and it would sort of like spark, and it would like little sparks would fly off of it. And I was like, holy shit, this stuff has hardcore chemicals in it, right?
Right.
But then also you could sort of just like, when if you're like a connoisseur of it, which I am. I've been around it since '87, and so I understand, what it should taste like, and I've had pristine stuff, for a long time. Like some people, they've never had anything but chemical laced stuff, so they don't know any better, So, but I could literally taste the chemicals in there, and then like you were saying, like I started noticing sometimes after I would smoke some of herbs from certain dispensaries, that all of a sudden I was like start coughing up a little bit of stuff or something afterwards, and I was like, hey, like, or have a scratchy throat or something. And that doesn't happen to me, so so I had, and the only thing that was different was that I had dispensary weed instead of stuff from a grower that I know, so that's it. But like I said, most of the dispensary weed out there does have chemicals in it. Like I would say almost 100% of it.
Okay.
And you'll see here, like there's like you'll see very few of these little green check marks. Like very few. Like there's none on that page, none on that page, none on that page. Two on that page. One on. Like it's not looking good, right?
Not at all. Not at all. And this is, like we were saying, this is the first article that really shares this very alarming, but again, you kind of been saying this for 10 plus years. Like you've been aware of it. You've been on point. It's just, this is now finally, hopefully hitting mainstream, and it's not like we're being targeted, but at the same time, again, I just feel like it's really weird that we have that many pesticides in this flour from these companies. It feels weird to me. I don't trust it at all. So
yeah, it's unfathomable to have that many in there. Like
exactly.
completely crazy.
There's
I
no
was
bug
trying
out
to think
there.
of how it could happen, and I was thinking like maybe it's in like there like nefarious people are putting it in the nutrients or whatever,
Right.
and even the people that are adding in some pesticides that they don't realize they're putting in other ones because it's because they're throwing it in nutrients or something. I don't know, but it's but yeah, but there's like bad actors putting like
Yep.
crazy. I can't imagine like one person wanting to put that many chemical like how would you even get 26 different ones? I mean,
That's
it's
my point.
crazy.
What bug is bad enough to where you need 26 plus chemicals and pesticides to kill it, and then loophole it through so that a human being is going to ingest it, inhale it, and do all that stuff, and then you're like, "Yay, thanks for the money." Like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, we've got to do our due diligence. We've got to be consistently talking about this to the point where hopefully something's done. I don't know what else it's going to take, but I'll tell you this: when I went, so there was Al, I told you this before. I went to a cannabis dispensary in Los Angeles a few months ago, and I noticed a sign in the doorway before you entered, and it had a caution cancer sign, right? I remember going, that's the first time I've seen that sign ever into a cannabis store where the cannabis flower plant is what actually will heal the cannabis. Why is there a sign there? What? And that kind of sparked this. Wait, maybe what's happening here, right? And is that
Mm.
because hi, yeah, there's pesticides. You're walking into a pesticide dispensary. We're giving you a warning, a heads up, but hopefully you'll miss that and just buy our shit. Is that what that was?
Yep, exactly.
Great.
Yeah, because they had to start doing that because people found out that there is allowable limits, So there is a couple of grassroots organizations that caused that to happen. Yeah, but that's exactly why is because there is pesticides in the dispensary cannabis for sure. And it's crazy because like I sort of gave up the position, but I was head for a little while, a couple of years, about 3 years, of the largest cannabis meetup group in-person meetup group in Arizona,
Yeah.
and it's been around for decades. And I had a meetup, and I had these like a cannabis like tasting, almost like wine tasting, but I had
Right.
a cannabis tasting. And I had like these little magnifying things and like a dozen different strains that were just badass, and
Right.
talked about them, and people could try them out and stuff like that. And I was talking to people and getting feedback from them about like dispensaries, and if they buy from dispensaries or if they buy from a friend that grows, or if they grow themselves and all this kind of stuff, because there was a bunch of growers in the group. There was thousands of people in the group, right?
Right.
So a lot of people that I talked to that actually came to the event were like, I don't buy from anybody that and I don't buy any cannabis that's not sold in a dispensary, because I could be sure that there's no pesticides.
Oh shit.
I could be sure that it's clean, and I don't trust anything else other than dispensary weed. And and I was like, wow. And like I told a couple of them, that's not the right way to think, kind of thing, like I tried to be nice about it, but and they were like really they, they got offensive about it, so I just
Sure.
mentioned it to anybody else, but that day, but yeah, we got the word has to be put out, and that's why this article is so important, and why I
Right.
spent 2 hours breaking it down like piece by piece,
Right.
and and making things clear that people might not understand the ramifications of, because like I said, I'm not just in cannabis, I'm in holistic health. I
Right.
wrote a book over a decade ago, Better Living with Whole Foods.
Right.
I'm a certified speaker for the Institute for Responsible Technology,
Yeah.
on things like genetically modified organisms and all kinds of things that are bad, and pesticides, herbicides, fungicides,
Yep.
and all that kind of stuff. So I have a track record that makes me able to talk about this
Right.
stuff in detail, and make it understandable for everybody. It's
Right. Right. Al, one thing that, really helps us with all these videos is like this is pretty heavy stuff. I'm really bothered by it. I know, you've expected, you've known. How do you lead us up to the mountaintop on this? What are some solutions? How, are there testimonials and scenarios that just remind us what this plant is supposed to do? Can you lead us out back into the light here?
Yeah. So, so being aware is key, right? So that's number one. So this is an opportunity to actually, be able to source and discover, some good cannabis, right?
Right.
Because it is out there. As far as what it can do for you, that the like you said in the last episode, with the
Yeah.
Rick Simpson Oil 101, it's one of those things where we're doing this, for to get the health benefits, therapeutic benefits, and the flower has to be pristine, in order to make the pristine oil, stuff like that, right? And and it is amazing what this stuff could do because it is an essential nutrient. It's not just
Right.
something that's nice to have or whatever. It's an essential nutrient that your body needs to operate at the utmost optimal levels. Without it, you don't. You like your body misfires. It goes into sickness and disease, and you
Right.
see that rampant all over the world, right? With
Right.
people. So with this last episode that was just posted 6 days ago, that like there's people like this person right here, unsolicited, good news, right? I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer that had spread to my liver. That is a death sentence. I started taking 750 to 1,000 milligrams of THC FECO, full extract cannabis oil, 5 days a week. So that's basically like a Rick Simpson oil protocol level, dosage right there,
Right.
to get rid of cancer. And so he says that the 3 tumors in my liver are now just scar tissue, so they're gone, and the cancer in my colon is now gone as well. So like crazy, crazy awesome, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's super awesome. And then there's another person, like that had metal plates in his legs and all this kind of stuff. It's sort of hard to read his thing because he has ADHD and Tourette's syndrome. But he says that it really helped him, and it's the only thing that did help because he did all kinds of medications and different drugs, and it only made things worse. And it made it like not only the like the it didn't take away the pain; it gave him more symptoms, but it also made his PTSD and anxiety worse too.
Right.
So and the cannabis, the RSO specifically,
Right.
helped him and made him better. Right.
Right.
It's pretty awesome. You know. So just a bunch of different things like that, like this person right here. This is just off of our last episode from 6 days ago. Like we have hundreds and hundreds of testimonials
Yeah.
even on our website. But this one, for anyone with degenerative discs or any kind of chronic pain, well, this medicine took it away within 4 hours.
Jeez.
Right? Within 4 hours. So he's had chronic pain for a long time, and nothing took it away. And he's hopped on this, and 4 hours it's gone. And we talked about why that is in the last episode,
Right.
Gene expression and neuromodulation
Right.
that the cannabinoids have. It's incredible the success that could be had if the cannabis and the oils are clean and pristine.
Correct.
So it's not that the case with tainted stuff, right? And especially with tainted stuff that has 2,000 times detectable limits or levels and 26 different chemicals inside of them, so you can't have that same kind of success. And like I said, that's why we exist. So like people that are listening to this, that they can come to us, kind of a thing,
Yes.
and reach out, support at myfitlife.net. And if we can't take care of you, we might know somebody, in your state that can, because I've been in this industry since '87, and I know companies all over the United States,
Right.
So if we can't help you, then most likely know somebody that can. So so feel free to reach out. And our consultations are complimentary too. We don't charge for them. It's just a service that we do for the cannabis community.
Yeah. It's perfect, Al. Look, so some of the takeaways I've gotten from you with just this video is, do your research, find growers that you know and that you trust, double check on the lab results and testing. Dispensaries are convenient. I get that. But at this point in time, it's the health of our body. Like it's the same reason why we're trying to drink clean water, eat healthy foods, detox. We're trying to do good. Why would we then do all this work to do good just to inhale, pesticides and poisons into our body. Like, it defeats the whole purpose. Like, the plant, this plant is a gift, but we need to make sure that we are accessing the purest form. And one of the things I'm thankful for with you is that you grow your own pure flower and create your own RSO, right? So
Yep.
all pure from seed to oil. So it's, it's you and the very few out there that are maintaining their integrity right now through all this, because you've turned down offers of over $1 million for them to buy your product, because why? Oh wait, the second they taint it, you can't see, not worth it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. I've had investment offers several times of the 7-figure, multiple 7-figure, all that kind of stuff, and I've literally like ripped up papers, thrown their business cards in the trash in front of them, because they do they will taint my stuff, and I need the stuff to see, and and that's more important to me than any amount of money. One thing I just thought of while you were talking though is the different grow stores, like the hydroponic stores kind of thing. If you go to them, and because they sell to growers, that's all they do, right? That's all they do all day long. So they know which growers are using chemicals and which growers are growing organically, because they sell them the stuff, right? They either sell them the stuff that enables them to mend the soil to grow organically, or they sell them the chemicals to spray their shit, and so they could tell you somebody in your neighborhood, most likely, that has clean, organically grown cannabis, if you decided to go that route. It takes a little bit of effort, to ask, but they're pretty friendly in those places most of the time. Some of them they could be a little bit whatever, but for the most part, they're good guys, and they're trying to do good. It's one of the it's sort of like one of the last outposts, in the cannabis industry, because everything else is so overly and highly regulated, supposedly, and then and all the big doggy actors are in every part of cannabis except for those places. Those places are still mom and pop.
Copy that. Noted. And also, anyone watching, viewers, if you are a grower, if you have questions on who to reach out to in your state or area, please communicate. Like, this is a community that we're trying to link people back in. I'm even trying to reach out to some of the old mom and pop companies that I'm worried either sold out and or got pushed out and had to find a different way to survive, because the corporations just jackhammered them into a corner, and it's unfortunate. And then no worries, it's the pureness of the plant. And Al has hundreds of videos on MyFitLife. If you have any questions about any of these topics, Al has more than likely gone into full detail about all of it on MyFitLife on YouTube. Correct, Al?
Yes,
you've
definitely
covered everything. And then I want to also reiterate that earlier today, Al just spent 2+ hours going in depth about everything we've talked about today, like line after line, pounded out all the information. I'm going to be watching it again after this, just to educate myself and kind of really build that anticipation to see what else can be done. But I think this is a great start. And Al, thank you for, being a pioneer on this and just bringing it out there, because a lot of us don't know what the fuck what's happening. And we need to, because we're inhaling toxic shit. Is there anything else you want to leave us with before we roll out?
No, just that you do need to take responsibility, and find that one, company that you can trust, and then be faithful to them, so you could, it's called voting with your dollars, and that's what you got to do in these times, in order to protect yourself, because nobody else is doing it for you. So you got to do it yourself. That's basically it.
Well, that's perfect, Al. That's everything on my end. Thank you.
Right on. Awesome. So that concludes this episode of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. Be sure to leave any questions or comments below, and subscribe to our channel if you enjoy this type of content. Reach out to support at myfitlife.net or schedule a complimentary call if you have questions about RSO or FECO, how to take it, or where to get it. And note that we are currently only working with clients in the United States. Okay. This is Al Morentin and
Meghan Hall.
of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. I hope you have a beautiful day. Peace.
Peace.